Tagging video, if you see a lot of repetitive videos, sometimes it's not even just for me to tell what's happening, but also to put that in the faces of this trash. I love the fact that they come up with love the fact that they are just so low life in life, that this is what life looks like for them. And then they think this is like successful, huh? This is victorious. And they be so fierce about it too. The trash that are contracted by these governmental entities to implement these things and help with the manipulations are so trashy, but in such a desperate state of just trying to make you accepting of this. Listen, I just keep bringing up the fact that the entities behind what's happening to us have an issue with pedophilia. It's been validated. What they do is now they try to exaggerate things to the level that's so disgusting. What I did as a child is something I did to myself. I love to, well, I don't love to say, I like to bring up the reality of what I did as a child. They've been systematically trying to exaggerate that. It has gone into something even more drastic. And that's what they do. They made me imagine all kind of disgusting things that has not happened, but make me imagine that. Today, because of what you're just going to hear, and those entities that have lost credibility in regard of because of this pedophilia consistent issue, this trash. And let me just say this: they play these perps involved in what's happening to me, play these feminists. So when they do these things where they try to break me down and make themselves be perceived as this feminist and they present themselves as this fierce femme fatale. And it's supposed to be like, yeah, you're gonna pay our children. When in truth is, they've been humiliated, that they're just to trash the government, you lies. And these governmental entities are so pedophilia-centric, they just get continuously being exposed for the pedos that they are. So what they start making me imagine, because of what you're going to hear soon, they made me imagine doing something even more extreme, talk about fingering. I don't need to go into details, but they want me to imagine that what I did as a child, I fingered, which is not what I did. I did something to myself. There was no contact but for me. I contacted myself. They even tried some of the less extreme levels, like you use a hand, you did this, and they try to, now they're literally saying I finger. When the truth is, I did something to myself. To myself, nobody else. They now use their hand. This is the things they try to do when they try to exaggerate things. Now they go to the point of like, you fingered her. And the reason why they're going to that extreme is because what they're talking about is what I did as a child in middle school. And so, first of all, that just by saying that, you know that children, as you've seen, in their childlike mentality, they can do these impossible things. They wish this thing was worse. That's why they want extreme. They want to exaggerate to another extreme level. They want to make it extreme when in truth is it was not that extreme, but it was inappropriate. And now we get to the point of extreme where they talk about fingering her. The reason why they say that is because what you're going to hear is, there's entities running this program behind this technology, employing or utilizing these perps that play the feminists and the avengers of children are actually entities who've been having issue with pedophilia. They are discrediting these clowns, these avengers, these fierce feminists. They're discrediting them so bad because it's clear that these agencies have problem with pedophilia. So what they do is like, no, you fingered her. And they get paid. I was like, okay. One thing is for sure, this purpose, I hope, well, actually I do hope, I really do hope they become bold into that level where they think that these disturbing things they created is something that is reality and make the mistake. I swear to God, I'll be there to oblige. I pray that they do that. I will give them a warning. Then I'll act accordingly. These bottom feeders have to deal with the reality that they actually are the pedophiles. And what they're doing is manipulate my brain. This is what they try to negate. Listen to this.
allegations are. And really the big story behind this CIA report, well, one of the stories is the lack of story. The fact that BuzzFeed reported on this, good for them. But obviously it was covered up by intelligence agencies and it has not been reported on widely. The Federalist reported on it. Some other journalists talked about it, but you probably didn't even hear about it. I only heard about it the other day, several days after it had been originally reported. And the fact that this isn't a huge bombshell that everyone is talking about is really disturbing. What is it? Are we just used to this kind of child sexual abuse? Has it become normalized? Has it become sterilized in some way that we just don't really want to talk about it? I do also wonder if any mention of pedophilia in the ranks of the intelligence world or in the ranks of the government or in the powers that be has been so cleverly associated with conspiracy theory over the past several years. And part of it is because there are conspiracy theorists like QAnon conspiracy theorists who push ridiculous things that have also made it more difficult for people to raise actual allegations of pedophilia and sex trafficking and child sex abuse. But I do wonder if some propagandists in the media have done such a good job of tying any allegations of sex trafficking and pedophilia to conspiracy theories that most people just don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be seen as some Pizzagate QAnon person. And that in itself is evil. But the fact of the matter is that this is something that is going on. This is something that has gone on. So the loss of credibility that intelligence agencies have garnered over the past several years is something that they have brought on themselves. And this is the straw on the camel's back.
Experimental fact. Frog muscle contract physical.
The child porn on the Pentagon servers?
Come on.
Bro, supposedly they found more child porn on the Pentagon servers than they found on any servers, you know.
Could there be
consistently watched
space however you want, and you certainly don't have the right to use it in a criminal manner. So essentially this bill is trying to
is a shameful disgrace, and one we must fight head-on, Spanberger said in a statement. According to child pornography watchdog Internet Crimes Against Children Child Online Protective Services, the Defense Department network consistently ranks in the top tier of Internet service providers for trafficking child pornography. It ranked 19th of nearly 3,000 networks surveyed in 2018. Meta
agency. Others also work at this, for instance, the National Security Agency, the National Reconnaissance Office, and the very secretive Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency. Others also work
two-year-old and a 6-year-old. He was simply fired. One employee purchased sexually explicit videos of young girls filmed by their mothers. He resigned. One employee estimated that he had viewed up to 1,400 sexually abusive images of children while on agency assignments. Not sure what actions, if any, were taken by him. One contractor arranged for sex with an undercover FBI agent. I think that you mentioned that. Posing as a child, he had his contract revoked. One CIA staffer was charged with child sexual crimes, and the employee was also under investigation for mishandling classified material. But sexual crimes involving children, says BuzzFeed, including the viewing of images of abuse, have been uncovered at other agencies that handle sensitive information. In a November 2009 report, the Department of Defense acknowledged that dozens of Pentagon staff members or contractors had such images. In 2014, the Inspector General of the Intelligence Community found that two officials from the National Reconnaissance Office, which oversees America's spy satellites acknowledge viewing images of child sexual abuse during polygraph examinations. This is so disturbing. At a symposium in 2016, Daniel Payne, a top Pentagon security official, said that when workers' computers were examined, the amount of child porn I see is just unbelievable. Is this something that is happening in the general evil?
Allie, we're told, and when I was put through recruitment into the intel community, you're put through polygraphs, you're put through a rigorous selection process. Why aren't these people weeded out? Why are so many pedophiles allowed to be given top-level security clearance? Remember, these aren't just people walking in off the street and saying, hey, can I get hired? Can I get a job? You're put through an extremely rigorous background check screening process. It's called an SSBI, single scope background investigation. There are people, they interview you, they interview your family, they interview your contacts, they go through your online footprint, they go through everything. So why is it that when they're going through these footprints, they're not checking, these digital footprints, they're not checking for so many pedophiles getting through their ranks? If it were up to me, you need to go into Congress, and Congress needs to launch a brand new church committee, number one, to talk about domestic surveillance operations, but number two, to ask the question, why are there so many pedophiles sitting behind
the CIA raping children and sexually assaulting children, and they're not being prosecuted? Where are you?
Has come under investigation for links to the proliferation of graphic material. Called Project Flickr, some 5,000 individuals have been identified as having subscriptions to child porn sites, including many DoD-affiliated persons. So this ongoing national investigation has now prompted the House to introduce a bipartisan bill that would help the DoD stop the use of its network to, quote, possess, procure, or produce child pornography. Joining us to discuss this, investigative journalist Ben Swan. So Ben, the Pentagon already takes measures to limit worker access to stuff like porn by rolling out what they call the Personal Electronic Device PED policy, where workers have to drop off their phones and lockers before entering their offices. All their online searches are accessible by security if or when needed. Their Wi-Fi access is monitored in digital security sweeps. So how is this happening?
Well, it's happening because even though there is a certain amount of limitation on access, those who are working in the Department of Defense, clearly it appears to be thousands of individuals in the Department of Defense, are finding ways around this, specifically by using the Department of Defense IP addresses and also apparently peer-to-peer sharing within the department's network. So this study that was done on this issue, and it is pretty horrifying, Manila, to consider this. It shows that the Department of Defense ranked 19th out of almost 3,000 networks in terms of peer-to-peer sharing of child pornography. That is absolutely incredible. This bill attempts to essentially say, look, we're not doing enough to stop it from coming in, but we're also not doing enough in the Department of Defense to go after those individuals who are being recognized as the ones who were perpetrating this.
So Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger is the co-author to this bill. She said this, quote, the notion that the Department of Defense's network and Pentagon-issued computers may be used to view, create, or circulate such horrifying images is a shameful disgrace and one we must fight head-on. Now, the fact that the Pentagon workers, be they civil or military or otherwise, already submit to a gauntlet of daily scrutiny just going in and out of work, is it fair then to the tens of thousands who are completely innocent to further allow that much more government intrusion into their digital devices or the things that they're dealing with on their computers?
Well, remember that what's being talked about here is not an intrusion into someone's personal device or even their home. This is about saying Department of Defense computers are being misused to share, to spread, to access child pornography. And when you step into an office, whether it's a Department of Defense office or it's the offices at RT America, wherever you go into an office, you do not
made to smell various things. microwave radiation to control human behavior. To control the brain. In 1965, DARPA launched Project Pandora, which studied the possibility of using microwave radiation to control human behavior. The project reportedly ended in 1969, but DARPA's investigation of how machines can affect and possibly control the brain continues to this day. Human mind can be altered. In 1965, DARPA launched Project Pandora, which studied the possibility of using microwave radiation to control human behavior.
Of innocent citizens being controlled by government-sanctioned experiments? Is Cheryl Welch telling the truth, or are her claims absurd? Just another conspiracy theory that's impossible to prove? Maybe. But not if you listen to Nick Begich.
I think there's some good evidence that Cheryl Welch and many of the other people I've spoken with have been victimized by this electromagnetic mind control experiments. The weapons of this century aren't bombs and bullets and ordnance, but electromagnetic energy targeting the human being, which is a greatest revolution in military affairs since gunpowder.
Begich is an expert in government mind control. He is convinced the Pentagon has mastered a technology once thought to be science fiction, the ability to broadcast information directly into the human brain.
Our government began spending a lot of time looking at how to modify behavior of human beings. Going back to the Korean War, in fact, in a publication, Low-Intensity Conflict in Modern Technology, they have a chapter on electromagnetic weapon systems, being able to not just to debilitate someone, but actually even to stimulate certain activities within the brain.
But how?
HARP is the High Frequency Active Auroral Research Project, which started as a joint effort of the Air Force and Navy. This is a very large array or field of antennas based in Alaska, radio frequency antennas.
HARP antennas transmit powerful radio signals into the upper atmosphere to study the effects on wireless communications. But Begich says HARP can also be used for more sinister ends.
HARP has announced several other programs and campaigns, and there's two areas that I got very concerned about. One was weather modification applications. The other was the effect on human beings. If you can modulate a signal that the brain locks onto, recognizes, and begins to mirror or follow the frequency following response, the brain rhythms change, then it creates a chemical cascade within the brain and the emotions change. Now the resolution gets finer and finer and finer. And it used to just to be about triggering emotions. You could change people's brain chemistry pretty readily, change their emotional state pretty easily. But when you get down to the idea of thoughts and being able to manipulate those, that requires a different kind of sophistication.
It's called offensive information
radiation, non-ionizing radiation for the use of cognitive control or behavior control. I've submitted a paper to you, and there's another paper submitted to each member from another physician in Kansas City, alluding to the same thing.
You do that, you can control them using neuro-linguistic programming techniques. You're rewiring their thought processes and brains. And so this gets into what's called offensive information warfare. And they used it, I believe, in the Gulf War. You can call it a eugenics program even. But also walk them to their... They want to see if they can... Hyper game theory. How do you... They want to see if they can manipulate people to do things that are irrational, but also walk them to their death. And so you can call it a eugenics program even. And they need to sample all cultures, language throughout the world to define their probability matrices of which tricks, techniques, deception works. So how do you control a brain? Most people don't believe that. Oh, you can't control me. I have my own free will.
V2K, or voice to skull. This involves the projection of voices, noises, and music directly into my mind to communicate with me in real time and at the speed of thought. And it also includes the manipulation of thoughts, emotions, and perceptions in the person's mind. Additionally, the targeting is all highly perverted and sexual, as well as just
It is dramatic. It's somebody trying to end my life. It's somebody trying to end who I am as a person. It's somebody trying to take over my mind, putting thoughts of pedophilia. This disgusting, disgusting, disgusting things. You saw where I was going with that first word. Disgusting things that I don't even want to talk about because it makes me sick. I don't even like those words in my mind. But it is what it is. So I have no choice now but to acknowledge that there are people in my surroundings or whatever they're doing. I don't know how they do it. I don't care. I don't know if it's through weapons. I don't know. I don't care.
This is a common breakdown tactic of belief systems and the human will. In no-touch torture, the techniques are more psychologically specialized for each target. Most common examples include homosexual targets that are forced with voices that are derogatory to their lifestyle and similar mental images. Almost all targets are forced to view child pornography in their minds. And vice versa.
They use these monarch-style torture programs, like it's based on sex and trauma. So they're gonna traumatize you. They're gonna use your libido to get back at you, and
this technology can be used to sexually manipulate the target. It can make the target feel sexual arousal.
experience what is referred to as malodorance. This is the alteration of the smell sensation so that I am often made to smell various things, including smoke, burning, dirty diaper, or baby powder, which they sometimes combine with the pedophilia type of torture, including the threat of planted dreams and form of torture. They coordinate the voice. I really mean extreme. I experienced an entire night with forced spontaneous orgasms repeatedly all through the night, one right after another, with maybe around 1 hour of sleep or so, as I lay immobilized in my bed.
In my mind, I can hear my own voice. I told them I'm going to make you pay for all of the years of torture that I've taken, and all you are going to me and my family. Ben said the slaves began a program of perversion. First was with my dog. I am very playful with my pet, and suddenly one day that I was petting him I felt strange, in the sense of the word. I thought, this is strange, and then afterwards that strange sensation continued. Then in that moment I realized that was impost, so I thought, look at this losers, don't know how to put me down, and they are doing this. So I told them that I know what you are trying to do, and I started laughing, and then I said again out loud, you'll never take my will, ASS, so just to show them that I meant what I said, I kept playing with my dog, and even though that attacks continue, I don't let them get me. Information is written.
Pedophilia type of images and videos. I also often see highly disturbing pornographic images and videos, including highly disturbing pedophilia type of images and videos when I close my eyes.
be my guess, that this person developed delusional disorder. This is a paranoid schizophrenia. But first of all, nobody develops paranoid schizophrenia in their 50s. This is, if you haven't developed it by 30, it's not. Then this technology exists. These nefarious programs exist. And it's hard to imagine for a person that why would you do something like this? But if you think about the new type of warfare,
cognitive warfare.
Exactly. It's a cognitive warfare. You don't have to kill people that you are fighting against. You can just degrade their brain. You can,
you alter their minds.
Yeah, alter their minds.
Personalities.
And it's like Chinese torture. I mean, okay, so.
So this gets into creating Manchurian candidates, split personality, and information curtains, satanic ritual. Okay, so they'll say we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's. So they'll say we're the V2K. So they'll say we're the Russian government, we're the Chinese government, we're evil aliens, we're Satan's, satanic ritual abuse. And I've heard all these stories. One guy believed it was some 14-year-old kid with an Xbox that lived next door. The trickery really is that great when you're under hypnosis that people will believe something other than a massive government could do this.
It's already being used. I mean,
if you talk to the victims, the TIs, one of the worst breakdowns.
For that, we're not going to get graphic or anything, but we're just going to talk about what some of these allegations are. And really, the big story behind this CIA report, well, one of the stories is the lack of story. The fact that BuzzFeed reported on this, good for them. But obviously,